Hello, and welcome to Power Pros Podcast, episode number 28, Realms of Revelation. I am one of your co-hosts, the Hoff, Chris Hoffman, and with me is the birthday boy, my colleague and co-host, Chris Slate.
Hello!
And we're back once again to talk about Nintendo. Our big topic this week is going to be RPGs. And speaking of which, I think we're going to kick things off with some impressions of a brand new game that came out a couple days ago, Xenoblade Chronicles X.
Yeah, finally that game's here. It seems like it's been out in Japan forever.
Yeah, it certainly took its sweet time. It's been out there for a while, but we finally got it. We were able to get into it a bit over the weekend. What have you thought so far?
Well, I've barely had time to scratch the surface. I mean, I've put 2 or 3 hours in, which for most games, that'd be deep enough to have a really solid opinion. But this is the game where, people have been saying for months that it takes like 80 hours or whatever before you even get to fly a mech around.
Yeah.
And it is front-loaded with, as you would expect in a game that has so complicated and has so many different systems in it, it is front-loaded with a lot of kind of tutorial-type stuff, learning the ropes, learning about the world setting. So I'm still kind of knee-deep in that. I just chose my class, which I chose Pathfinder, since I figure I'll be most drawn to going out and exploring the world anyway. It suits me well. But yeah, so, I do have some early kind of... I guess first blush impressions, which are still, way undercooked, like I say, because I'm just scratching the surface. How about you? Any strong opinions so far?
Well, I gotta say, I am right there with you. I have not nearly had the time that I wanted to get into this game. I thought that I was going to be like spending the entire weekend playing it, but things just came up. I ended up going to the PlayStation experience over the weekend, and while that might mark me as a traitor for not doing something Nintendo related, I did get a chance to say hi to Mr. Kaiji Inafune, the Mega Man mastermind, who I have not seen in quite a while. So that was fun and Nintendo-ish.
Well, you're excused this time.
But I mean, this game really is vast, and just to exemplify how big it is, I spent like 2 hours just on the custom character screen. It is ridiculous.
Yeah,
and
I spent way too much time there too.
It's not really ridiculous in a good way. I actually had a bunch of issues with the character selection because you can select like from these different faces, and then the different faces determine like your hairdo and stuff like that. And you can't just be like, here's any face, here's any haircut. Here's any other facial features you might want, go to town. It's specific to these faces. And so I just had to keep going back and experimenting and like saving off one. I'd be like, okay, I kind of like this one, but let's try another one. Okay, let's try a different one. Okay, let's try a female now. And of course, females have a completely different set of hairdos as well. And I just don't understand why I didn't make that all one unified thing that would allow you to just pick and match the parts. But because of that, it took me like 2, maybe 3 hours. I just was so indecisive.
I didn't even know that. I didn't realize that the hairstyles were determined by, or the options rather, were determined by the faces.
Yeah,
I just kind of went through and picked one. Yeah,
it probably looked like you had like 10 hairstyles to choose from or something. But no. If you have like, A or boy A has like, 10, and then boy B has another 10, and then old man has another 10, and so on and so forth. And if you want to just try to come up with the perfect character, there's a lot of testing and experimentation you have to do. And then after that, I was like, oh, now I have to name him. Like, oh man, I sat there for like half an hour just trying to come up with a name.
It is that thing where this is a game you can easily sink 100 hours into, and it puts that much more pressure on you up front to get it all right. Mm-hmm. Although I feel like, I don't know that I'm sure a lot of listeners know the answer to this, but I feel like I saw somewhere online that after a certain number of missions, you are able to go back in and change some of your customization options. So
that sort of thing isn't unprecedented.
Yeah, and I've already decided that I made some mistakes in hairstyles and things like that, and right away I was kind of not happy with how the character looked once she was in that world.
With a female character, huh?
Yeah, and normally I would pick a guy just because I'm a guy, I guess, for this kind of game, but for some reason I just wanted to... I felt like let's mix things up a bit with this game, especially since the game seems to have, or so far at least, the primary characters I've encountered are female. So I thought, let's have a little bit of girl power in this adventure this time. So I'm giving that a shot. But yeah, I don't like the hairdo I gave her. I'm questioning the face, questioning everything, the voice. And I'll tell you,
I'm questioning the scar I put on my guy.
I gave her like the little star tattoos thing, and then I was like, why did I do that? She just looks like Jim on the holograms or something. But
that's not so bad. I've considered doing that from time to time. I've considered making like a really androgynous dude and giving him some stars. Not in this game, but I've done it in other titles. But it was kind of the opposite for me. A lot of times in games like this, I do pick a female character, like I did in Fire Emblem. But this time I decided to go with the guy, I guess because that's just kind of the default that you kind of see in all the screenshots and stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll just go with the guy for now.
I'll tell you what, I really am not impressed early on with how the game handles a silent protagonist. Why
is he a silent protagonist? You can choose from like 6 different voices. So I'm like, okay, fine, good. You can choose the voice, but so far he's just totally clammed up.
Well, I mean, I guess I can understand from a production standpoint that if this is a long game and there's presumably a lot of story sequences where there's a lot of dialogue, and I could see if you add up both all the different options for male and female voices, that would be a lot of recording and re-recording all this dialogue. So maybe that's a bit much, but
it would. But so far, it's been like pretty much nothing.
I feel like even if setting that aside for a moment, I feel like the way they're going about doing a silent protagonist isn't very good. And it made me also think ahead to Zelda, and we've said before on the show, I think we both agreed that in answering the question of should Link talk in Zelda games, we feel like he should probably remain silent, but that everyone else in the world should talk. So I've been with that in mind, I've been paying close attention to how they kind of do that in Xenoblade Chronicles X. And I think one key mistake they make is instead of just skipping over your character's reaction to certain things and just assuming that they said something, it's like they go out of their way to kind of zoom in on them and let them do this kind of quiet shoulder shrug or something in response to what someone said. And it just kind of it draws attention to the fact that they're these strangely mute characters in a talkative world. And I feel like they could have done it much more effectively if they just, refrained from kind of putting the spotlight on characters that way. So it's kind of a minor thing in the grand scheme of things, but overall, the kind of really generic presentation of how you start when you're first kind of found in the game, and you're kind of found with memory loss, which makes sense because that explains
but it was very much a cliche.
It is very much a cliche, and I understand it from a gameplay perspective that they're going to constantly be explaining things to you and showing you around town, and if you hadn't lost your memory, there'd be no reason for them to tell that your character or you vis-a-vis your character all this stuff. But it is, like you said, it is a little bit of a cliche, and so far, as much as I'm impressed with certain aspects of the game, the things that I'm not super impressed with are kind of the generic feel, not only of your kind of generic by design character, but also kind of the generic kind of presentation of this kind of anime, robot future world, which I feel like I've seen a lot. I don't know, but again, it's so early on. Who knows which twists and turns? I heard that the story does take interesting twists and turns. So who knows? I'm hoping, and I assume that it eventually will kind of become more of its own thing.
Well, so far I'm not having any problems with that, and I'm certainly impressed by other aspects of the game. I mean, like I said, the game is so big that it took me like 2 to 3 hours just to get through the character creation, and then what followed, certainly did not let me down. Just, seeing, all of this world to explore and, going through that, getting to that first city, going up the elevator, being able to look down on all that expanse, and you'll get to see that. I'm just like, wow, look at all this. This is, super impressive. Oh, then I threw myself off the elevator just to see what would happen. And you don't die, you fall all the way. But boy, man, it gave me like such a sense of vertigo. It was kind of impressive how much it pulled me in as I was plummeting all that way down.
Yeah, the game definitely delivers on kind of its core promise that they're giving you this giant world, probably the biggest video game world you've ever seen. And it's definitely pushing up against the limits of the Wii U hardware. There's definitely a lot of pop in and the frame rate isn't always the smoothest and things like that, but nothing that ever really gets in the way. And to the game's credit, like I said, they're pushing up against it so hard that while you do start to see some limitations, they are getting about pretty much the most you can get out of this system, and it's impressive in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it really is. I have to say though, one thing that I've been running into so far, it's not a technical problem, but just like, you wake up, you meet this other character, you're running through this forested area, you fight some enemies, and you just have must be the worst, lowest grade weapons on Earth, because you're like fighting like these little insects, and they take like 5,000 hits.
Yeah.
Why are you so weak? I'm afraid to, go out and get any other significant battles if it takes me like 2 minutes to kill a little gnat.
Well, essentially the game starts with them finding you in an escape pod and then escorting you back to town. But it took us forever to get to town because I don't necessarily...
You're OCD and you were trying to kill everything, weren't you?
I was going to say, I don't necessarily really have OCD, but when it comes to games, I kind of do have that kind of 100% completion mentality. And I quickly learned that no matter how many of these bad guys I killed, on my journey home,
they keep respawning.
Yeah,
I was kind of the same way. I'm like, okay, this is an RPG. I know you can't just run away from fights. You got to encounter these guys. You got to level up. And I was doing the same thing. Like, okay, I'm going to clean out this area. I'm like, wait, didn't I already take care of over there where all these guys? There's still more guys over there. What's going on? And after a while, I'm like, okay, it's time to move on. Move on. Let's go.
Yeah, I don't normally like respawning enemies, but maybe it's a blessing if it keeps me from going on some fool's mission to destroy every single critter in the world. It's kind of funny
to wipe out the entire indigenous population of this planet.
It is funny because story-wise, there's no good reason for me to run around and just be killing things that are peacefully going about their own business. But video game-wise, I'm just thinking I want to level up, and
it's true.
Here's an easy opportunity. And that guy's big. I wonder what it would be like to shoot his knees out.
But earlier they do explain that you've been having trouble with the wildlife there, and they're causing problems, and those monsters attack outside the gates of the city. And fortunately, those guys weren't nearly as troublesome as I would have imagined. For like the first bosses you encounter, it's like, oh, they aren't really any harder than these stupid beetles I was fighting a little bit ago.
Yeah, I mean, within a certain degree, you can be fooled. You can have a smaller enemy actually be higher level and more dangerous than a bigger, much more seemingly tough enemy who's actually kind of a pushover.
Mm-hmm.
But if you see like a giant brontosaurus-sized guy, you should probably stay away until at least you get a...
Yeah, I mean, they tell you what level the guys
or
are.
Scale, they call it.
So... Yeah, you know what you're getting into.
I will
the
say,
whole bigger they are, harder they fall thing, not necessarily true at this point.
Yeah. I will say that for all of the upfront kind of tutorial stuff they give, I still find myself constantly kind of feeling like I'm barely keeping up. And there's some systems, some core combat stuff that they just kind of skip right over, and I have to figure out for myself. And luckily, it's very similar to the last Xenoblade game. And so I was able to kind of, kind of feel my way through it. But... yeah, I'm not like, for example, I didn't even know my character. She would use certain arts, and that would automatically switch her from a gun to a knife or back and forth. And I didn't realize for a while until I just noticed it on the HUD that if I pressed X, I could manually switch between weapons.
Yeah, I noticed that right away, but it is weird they don't explain that to you at all.
Yeah, they skip over that stuff, and then you have like a 20-minute discussion on like the history of different jobs or something. So it is a little bit weird in that way, but
well, there was a lot to cover in that game, and I'm really looking forward to getting into it, but unfortunately I just haven't had the time to do so just yet.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to more. I mean, that's the biggest thing I can say about, anytime you give early impressions, the most important thing is that after you've, did that initial dip into a game, are you eager to get back? And the answer is definitely yes for me.
Yeah, hopefully after we're done recording, I'm going to go back and play some more. I will say that one of the reasons why I wasn't able to play as much as I wanted to was because I, had played a bunch. I put my controller down, tried to recharge it, and it didn't go into the charging cradle properly. So I went back to play again. Like, oh man, I'm all out of juice. This totally stinks.
Sabotaged.
So, yeah. So between that and all the other stuff going on, just wasn't my weekend for Xenoblade. But I will make up for it in the near future. I promise.
Well, it's the last big game from Nintendo for the year, so we've got, we'll have the holidays, the holiday break to really sink a lot of time into it.
I don't know what you're talking about. Devil's Third's about to come out.
Oh, yeah, Devil's Third. I forgot.
I admit, though, I actually have found some time to play another recent release, and that is Pokémon Picross.
Same here. That's probably actually eaten into a lot of time I could have been spending on Xenoblade.
I've been playing it while riding the public transit here, the BART system, the pseudo subway. And other times as well. It's a really fun game. I really like it.
Yeah, I mean it's Picross, and Picross just by default is a fun little kind of numbers puzzle game.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the biggest Pokemon fan, so it would have worked better for me if it had been, like my dream Picross game would be more along the lines of Tetris DS, which was skinned with all sorts of classic 8-bit Nintendo retro pixel goodness from all sorts of franchises. But I will say that as at best a casual Pokemon fan, this is definitely a new way into that franchise for me. It's I'm learning more about different Pokemon and things just because I'm playing this game.
Yeah, you're still catching them all.
Yeah, and it's I do like what they've added to it in terms of the special abilities you get from Pokemon, how it kind of gives you little cheats essentially.
Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of feel compelled that I'm not going to use them most of the time, but I kind of have to because if you want to, do all the objectives for this puzzle, you got to use a special ability here. I'm like, okay, all right, grunge.
Yeah, I like that it's not, I mean, I call them cheats, but I like that it's treated more as like, official power-ups. I mean, like these are legit strategies to employ and not like a handicap or something. So I've enjoyed using those, especially on the bigger puzzles. When you get like a 20 by 20 puzzle, those are...
that was nasty, man. I was doing one of those last night. It took me like 2 hours, and I didn't even have any abilities that were useful on a puzzle of that size yet. So.
I've gotten. I know. I mean, you have to. There's opportunities to mega evolve your different Pokemon, and then they become, able to be used in those bigger puzzles. But you get like 3/4 of the way through one of those puzzles, and then you kind of realize, wait a minute, I made a mistake on this line, and then you wonder, well, wait, if I made a mistake on this line, then that probably caused me to make a mistake. Then I end up usually just starting the whole puzzle over again.
Yeah, that didn't happen to me, but I was just super stumped fairly early on. So once you get over that little hump, then it tends to get a lot easier. But man, I was just stuck for the longest time trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I will say this is a pretty ingenious game to use for a free to start title.
Yeah. So what do you think of the free to start aspect?
Well, I think it's used very well here, and I played it for quite a while, several hours in fact, before I even had to consider putting any money in. And initially, I decided not to put any money in, and I just they make you wait a little while, basically a few hours, and you come back and you're able to play for quite a bit longer. But eventually I did pop in. I had some credit on there from when I bought those new Photos with Mario, eShop cards that came out recently. So I kicked it just like $7 and got enough. I don't remember if that was like 1,000, maybe 2,000. What do they call them? Pickites or Pictites, whatever the currency in that game is.
Yeah, it's not Picarat. That's in Professor Layton, but it's close to that.
Yeah.
Pickites, I think.
And that allowed me to, for all time, give myself permanent infinite energy, which, basically takes off the timer. It just lets you play as long as you want. And it also allowed me to unlock maximum number of slots to hold Pokemon, and it opened up quite a few new areas along the way. So, it's that thing though where you're playing it and you constantly feel like it's trying to get you to spend some money, even though it's not as bad as like Badge Arcade, where the rabbit's literally begging you for money every second you're playing it. But they're constantly you're having to use that in-game currency, and you're constantly being reminded that there's all this extra stuff you can do if you just pay.
I'm not a big fan of the way it's presented. I would have. The way I expected it to be was it'd be like, okay, here's, your first batch of puzzles. If you want to go beyond this, pay this amount and you get the stuff. But the way that you've got this energy meter and it refills over time, and then you have to, pay these things to, unlock the next area, and, the Pokemon slots, like you mentioned, it's like they keep giving you all these opportunities to stop playing and never come back. I just want to be like, okay, here, take my full amount and just let me play like a normal game. And that stuff's just kind of annoying to me.
Well, I guess
a fan.
The thing is, though, and I mean, I'm always torn when it comes to free to start, because I'm constant. I'm like you. I'd rather pay all the money up front and then just not worry about it. But then there are a lot of people who would never even give this game a shot, or maybe wouldn't be able to buy it straight away. And this is a way to get them exposed to it, and they may really enjoy it. So. But to be fair, you can go, from the moment you start playing the game, or maybe after you complete the tutorials, I'm not sure. But essentially from the beginning of the game, you can go into the eShop screen and pay them a set amount of money, and and then you just never have to pay them again.
Well, they don't explain that very well, though. I mean, if you went into the eShop and it's like, here, complete game unlock, then that's one thing. But it's like, oh, you have to spend a certain amount of these peak rights, and they don't fully explain that. It's like, okay, now you have infinite peak rights, but does that get you everything? I mean, I've spent $5 so far, and like with you, I now have infinite energy meter, and I still have a lot left over after that. But it's like $25 more to unlock. I guess that's the infinite peak rights. It's like, well, should I do that? Is that necessary? Would it make the game more fun if I do that? And it almost feels like they're losing out here. Because I was more than happy to spend, 20 or $30 to get a full complete game, but so far they've only gotten 5 out of me. It's weird.
Well, I mean, they could be a little clearer, but they do kind of say straight up that if you spend, once you've bought 5,000 peak rights with your real money, and I don't remember if it's peak rights, I'm just saying peak rights, then from then on you have unlimited peak rights. And since everything in the game is unlocked with peak rights, I think that's pretty much saying if you bought those 5,000 peak rights straight away, then you pretty much never have to worry about having to buy anything else in the game again. And the grand total for that, I'm not sure what it would be, 20-something, 30-something bucks maybe.
I think if you took advantage of the value-priced things, you can do it in, I think, almost exactly $30.
Okay, so but here's the weird thing though, and it's not really the game's fault. But I do have this knee-jerk reaction where, if you're giving me free to start and I'm already playing the game, and then you start asking me for even little amounts of money, my defenses kind of go up. I have this natural kind of knee-jerk, like, no, this is a scam, don't buy into this.
Yeah, that's why I just wanted to be like, okay, pay for the whole thing out the gate and don't worry about it ever again.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
the way they dole it out so slowly, it's like, oh, maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe I can save myself a few bucks.
But, but like I said, if you step back and think about it, it's like if I just gone to the store, to me, this game probably would have been worth the full $40. Mm-hmm. And I would have just handed it over and not worried about it.
Right, totally. Me too.
There's a chance that for less than that, I could just give them one lump sum and essentially just own the game and not have to be nickel and dime anymore. But just because of the free to start kind of environment, it is a different mentality, and it's been interesting to kind of recognize it in myself. Like I said, if I'd bought the physical copy, one lump sum, I'm used to that. It makes sense to me, no problem. Whereas even if I get a better deal in the long run here, I still kind of feel like, I don't know if it starts to feel more like a mobile thing, and I don't associate full price with a mobile product.
Well, despite all that, I'm still really enjoying the game. Just like you said, the basic premise of Picross is really fun. It's nice having recognizable characters in there, and it adds a bunch of unique twists. So, yeah, for me, it's totally recommended, despite the free-to-play trappings that I'm not a fan of.
Yeah, it's a hell of a lot better than Pokemon Shuffle. Was that what it was called, the other free-to-start game?
Yeah, I didn't care for that one too much either.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hate it. It was just kind of, a little bit blah. But this one's... I would definitely recommend it.
Mm-hmm. We mentioned that those were pretty much all the big releases. We got Xenoblade. We still have Devil's Third coming out, but they actually just announced another major title that's coming out in just a little over a week. Minecraft Wii U Edition is coming out on December 17th.
Yeah, I mean, that was good to hear. I mean, let's be honest. This is like the last there are probably like TVs that already have Minecraft built into it.
Yeah, I think it's on pretty much everything else on Earth at this point.
So it's not a very exciting announcement. I don't know. I've never been a big Minecraft player, so I'm not sure exactly. And I haven't heard if this game, maybe is going to do anything special or different on the Wii U, like maybe use the gamepad or something.
It does use the gamepad. It has off-screen play.
But I will say that this is a franchise that is obviously, like more like an MMO, has really stuck around and been one of the most popular games year after year after year. And
yeah, a lot of people really like it.
And it's especially popular with kids. So it's nothing to sneeze at to say that, people who love Minecraft or people who are still coming to Minecraft will have the option to pick it up on Wii U, this holiday season. Maybe a kid gets a Wii U this Christmas for something like Splatoon or Mario Maker, and hey, his friends are all playing Minecraft, and now he gets to join in on that too. So I think it's an important box to finally have checked off, but not necessarily something that we're gonna shoot some fireworks over.
It seems like it's been well overdue for it to arrive on a Nintendo console for sure.
And it's always interesting when you get Microsoft. I think here it's technically, even though Microsoft owns the Minecraft company, it's what's the name of the Minecraft developer again? Is it I can't think of it right now. Brain fart. But anyway, I think they're the actual publisher on Wii U, but overseas it's Microsoft themselves publishing, so that's kind of interesting.
Yes. Mojang, I believe, is the publisher.
That's it. I was about to say Moji. I knew it was something like that.
The game over here. But yeah, I mean, the Microsoft connection is a very interesting thing. I mean, they own it now. They control the fate of it. So that is them saying, yes, we want one of our brands on a Nintendo system. Who knows what that could mean for, other things happening down the road. But, I mean, if I were Microsoft, maybe I would think, let's keep this as far away from, Nintendo as possible. This is a, feather in our cap, an exclusive that's only on, PC and Xbox these days or something like that. But nope, they're branching out.
I guess when you've spent the billions that they spent to get Minecraft, and it's really its own major business within the operation, they have kind of a whole separate important bottom line that drives those decisions. Maybe even more so than the Xbox division, potentially saying they'd like to keep it a console exclusive or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate about the business aspect of this and how it all came together, I suppose. But it's just cool that it's coming out. It's including some DLC content packs for textures and skins, or maybe they're not DLC, maybe they're already built into the game, but they are additional sets that maybe with other releases weren't included. And there is going to be a ton of add-on DLC. You can do new textures for stuff that looks like candy or steampunk, and then a whole bunch of licensed stuff, including Star Wars, Doctor Who, The Simpsons, Mass Effect, and even Skyrim. So now Skyrim is coming to Nintendo systems as well in the form of Minecraft skins.
Well, another thing that only makes sense is it seems like one of the biggest pastimes of Minecraft players for years has been rebuilding classic, areas or characters from Nintendo games in the world of Minecraft. So they'll finally get to do that on a Nintendo platform now. I'll be really curious to see how well it does, and I hope it does well. I hope this doesn't become another example of, a publisher puts a major multi-format title on a Nintendo platform, but does it incredibly late, and then it underperforms, and then that publisher just thinks, I guess, we can't succeed on a Nintendo platform.
Maybe. I mean, also the other thing about it is that, while this has been rumored for a while, they just announced it. And it's like, okay, coming out next week, not really a whole lot of fanfare. It seems like this is the kind of title that, despite being download only, they should have been hyping up for a long time. Minecraft finally come to Nintendo.
I mean, I think, it would be worth television ads, or at least to be part of some kind of, overall kind of Nintendo holiday themed campaign. I mean, why not say, Minecraft, one of the world's most popular games, now coming to Wii U, and sell the fact that it's an enhanced version and show people kind of using the stylus on the gamepad to build worlds. Make people think that this is, a major new advancement in the Minecraft game and not just an old port.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. For me, though, I'm wondering, will there be additional really cool exclusive things? Like I said, there's all these DLC bits coming. Will there be exclusive Nintendo themed DLC items? It seems like an obvious thing to do.
I'm surprised that wasn't announced up front. I mean, honestly, we've seen it so many times. Nintendo letting other publishers use their characters and things as kind of a way to get those major franchises onto their platforms. Mm-hmm. So I'm really surprised Minecraft didn't come out of the box with some kind of elements that you could, maybe some Sprite Marios or something, they're readily available to place in your worlds. It's strange we didn't hear about that. Maybe we will get some DLC. That'd be
maybe they're still
cool.
working it out or something. Who knows? Yeah, personally, I've never played much Minecraft. I don't know if I'm really going to get this and try it out, but I'm excited for the fans, and I'm excited for Nintendo that it's happening.
Yeah, my little girl really likes it on iPad, which is probably one of the worst versions to try, just because it's not as in depth as the full-on PC one. But maybe I'll get this for her and give it a try myself. I definitely need to see what all the fuss is about.
Yeah, the real trick is going to be clearing out space on your hard drive to make it fit after all those Xenoblade content packs, huh?
Oh my god. Basically my hard drive now is filled with Xenoblade or content packs and as many saves from different games that I could, not delete to make the rest of it fit on.
I think it's time for a hard drive. I know I'm planning to get one soon. I think you better do so as well.
Yeah, I maybe, but then I feel like how much longer am I really going to be playing Wii U at this point? I feel like if NX is coming next year, then maybe I can hold out.
So you know what else has been going on in the world of Nintendo news?
What?
Awards. Game Awards. Specifically, the Game Awards happened not so long ago, and Nintendo actually did really, really well.
That's cool to hear. And a lot of these things, whether it's multi-format game magazines or websites or award shows, it seems like, a lot of the focus is put on Sony and Microsoft consoles, and Nintendo a lot of times gets forgotten.
Well, I mean, it's not like Nintendo, took home every major award or anything like that, but they scored some big coups, specifically with Best Multiplayer and Best Shooter. Splatoon won both awards. It beat out Call of Duty Black Ops 3, Destiny the Taken King, Halo 5, Star Wars Battlefront, and Rocket League.
Wow.
Those are
That's
some heavy
pretty
hitters
amazing.
there.
As a Nintendo fan, I love that. I don't know that that's necessarily going to get a lot of Black Ops fans to come try Splatoon, but that makes me smile.
It's pretty awesome. It just goes to show that a little innovation can go a long way. I imagine that if you're into Call of Duty, Destiny, Halo 5, those are probably all kind of similar in a lot of ways, but Splatoon carved its own niche there.
Yeah. Yeah, so much so that maybe some people would argue that it's kind of its own category, but I'd say it's similar enough, and we should reward people who are creative and try interesting new things.
And then on top of that, maybe a lot less surprising, was that they also won Best Family Game for Super Mario Maker. And compared to the competition, there was like no contest. The ones that beat out were Lego Dimensions, Skylanders Superchargers, and Disney Infinity, as well as Splatoon. But it's an award that is well-deserved for Super Mario Maker, I would say.
Yeah, even through the lean times, Nintendo has always still been a really great place for I guess you'd call them family games. And that's not to use that term in a bad way. I think, it's always nice that you can have your games like Splatoon and Mario Maker at the same time that you might enjoy, The Witcher or Metal Gear on other platforms. They do a great job of that, and again, in a lean year, those two games, Super Mario Maker and Splatoon specifically, really stand out to me as being, two of the best that we've seen from Nintendo in years.
Mm-hmm. Interesting to note that all of the games in the family category were, they all use interactive figurines. They're all in this, Toys to Life category.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that's where we are now. I mean, on the other platforms, you could argue that the only family games are Toys to Life games.
Yeah,
that's really,
might kind of be true.
Taking over the living room. In the past, maybe the games and the brands rather that are used in a game like Disney Infinity would have been like a dozen separate games, but now they've just all been rolled up into one.
Yeah, the other thing that was pretty cool about the Game Awards was that there was a really touching tribute to former Nintendo president Mr. Iwata.
Yeah, Reggie came out on stage and spoke at length. Very heartfelt comments about Mr. Iwata.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he came out there and talked. They had a little musical tribute segment as well. And Nintendo hasn't really come out and said a whole lot publicly about Mr. Iwata since he passed. And it does feel like, they were just kind of maybe waiting for the right time. I think this was the right time, and it was well done and very classy. And so I applaud everyone involved for the way that they pulled that off.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very good move by the people who put that show together.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Nintendo leadership, there was a interview recently in Time with the new Nintendo president, Mr. Kimishima.
Yeah, I saw that. He didn't necessarily, throw out any brand new kind of like megaton bombs or anything, but it's interesting to hear in his own words his views on a lot of things regarding Nintendo.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. It wasn't full of big shocking revelations. It was kind of what we already knew. People who are familiar with the guy probably weren't too surprised. But there does seem to be this one quote that a lot of people online think maybe had some additional meaning, and that is where he mentioned the team that is responsible for Mario Galaxy.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, this is the team that ever since, I guess, Mario Galaxy 1, 2, and then I know they worked on Super Mario 3D World on Wii U, and I think they worked on 3D Land, Super Mario 3D Land for DS, unless I'm wrong. Sorry, for 3DS. So they've been working on Mario games for quite a while. They're essentially the 3D Mario team, and
Right.
not necessarily stereoscopic 3D, but there's been the new Super Mario Brothers team, the 2D team, and then the 3D team. And but he specifically referred to that group as the Mario Galaxy team. So does he mean, was that a little bit of a slip maybe from the president there, that they're working on a new Mario Galaxy game? I know that's what a lot of Mario fans would like to believe. Or was he simply referring to that team as the Mario Galaxy team because that's how he views them? Because those two games, even though they aren't the most recent Mario games that team has produced, those are the two that kind of started them up in terms of being Mario developers.
I wouldn't place too much onto this phrasing. I don't think it necessarily means that they're working on a new Galaxy game. I mean, we know they're working on a new 3D Mario, so that's not any sort of surprise. But it could totally be either way. I wouldn't start placing bets just based on that.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know which I'd prefer because, Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 are two of my all-time favorite Mario games. But then again, I really loved Super Mario 3D World, and I like the idea of, seeing Mario games that come out that are simultaneously both kind of the elements that I've always loved about those games, but also something fresh and new brought to the table. So I don't know if I'd want to see a Galaxy 3.
I'll be more than happy with a Galaxy 3. I love Galaxy 1 and 2. I think they're just about perfect as far as Mario games go. I do want to see something new, but if it ends up being Galaxy 3, that is fine by me.
Yeah, that's how I should have put it. I mean, I would love to see another Galaxy, but I just don't know if I'd love to see something brand new more. Of course, there's nothing to say they couldn't take the Galaxy concept and do something totally new with it. And presumably it would be for the NX because why would you be developing a new Mario game now for the Wii U? So yeah, it could be, who knows what they could do with that, whatever the new kind of elements are on that platform. Another thing that Mr. Kamisha mentioned was that his personal view of the Amiibo is that despite the success they've had the Amiibo, it's been a little bit of a failure with regards to the fact that most people, he claims, are collecting them just to collect them as toys, and they aren't necessarily using them a lot. For the in-game content.
I read that as well, and I guess he's kind of right. That's why I buy them. I mean, I do use them in every game where they're available, but I think if there's a failure in there, it's because Nintendo hasn't made a game where you really need to use them, other than craptastic Animal Crossing.
Excuse me. It'll be interesting to see if those are his thoughts and if they really do reflect, Nintendo as a publisher. It'll be interesting to see how they try to attempt to fix that situation. Going forward with future Amiibo, because it's that catch-22 where if you need them too much, then suddenly you're locking important pieces of content behind an Amiibo paywall, which people generally aren't in favor of. But then again, you ease off too much in the other direction, and then the Amiibo don't seem like they're especially necessary or especially fun to use in your game. So,
well, like with Animal Crossing, you can't even get past the title screen without an Amiibo. So
yeah, but then that's like an example of doing it badly, because using Amiibo in that game really doesn't add anything to the experience.
Yeah, I mean, that is bad, but that's because it's pretty much just a bad game in general. We've talked about before that I'd like to see an overarching Amiibo game that uses them in lots of creative ways and is basically the Nintendo equivalent of a Skylanders or a Disney Infinity or something along those lines. I still think there's an opportunity for it. I still think it could be done. I still think it could blow away the competition if done properly, like Nintendo tends to do.
I bet that's what we'll see. I think we'll see a continuing, the strategy that currently is in place continue, where there'll be little reasons to own an amiibo for most first-party games. But then what they've been missing is that one tentpole title, or maybe, several tentpole titles, where you really build the game around amiibo, hopefully in a much more engaging way than Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival was done. But then if you occasionally have those tentpole titles, but then in between that you've got all these little reasons, to kind of unlock smaller things in other games, and that could be a nice balanced approach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if I'm not using them extensively, it's because there's just no reason to use them extensively. I unlock my costumes, I, unlock my special benefits in the games that use them, but there's really no reason to keep using them on a continued basis for the most part. So just give us the game where there's a reason to do so, and I will use those amiibo like there's no tomorrow.
Yep. On a really, really short amiibo side note, I have some news that may shock you.
Oh?
I saw an Ike in a store yesterday.
Wow.
I saw actually 2 or 3 Ikes in a Toys R Us, I believe it was.
I have never seen Ike in a store. That was amazing.
I don't think I've ever seen a Fire Emblem character period in a store. So, this is just further proof that as we head into the holidays, they're finally getting more and more of those old characters out there.
Yeah, you never know with Amiibo.
Yeah.
But speaking of Nintendo collectibles, I would like to have a little segment now that we call Hoff's Holiday Buyer's Guide.
Hoff's Holiday Buyer's Guide. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I just wanted to mention a couple of fun Nintendo items that I have picked up recently. Over from Japan, I picked up the awkwardly titled The 30th Anniversary Super Mario Bros. Music, which is a 2 CD set, and it goes way beyond that disc that was packed in with the Wii re-release of Super Mario All-Stars. That one had one song per game, and this new set, it runs the whole spectrum. It doesn't include everything, but it starts with all the significant songs from Super Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers 3, Super Mario Land, all the games in the series, even up to Mario Maker. Even the title screen music from that game is included there, and it is a excellent musical tour through the Mario series.
I might want one of those. Where can you buy it?
I picked it up from a place called CD Japan, or it online, cdjapan.co.jp. Yeah, I think you would love it.
Man, if only Nintendo would just, even if they don't put out physical discs, just put this stuff on iTunes. We've said it so many times. Why isn't this on iTunes right now? Why can't I just click and download it?
Yeah, it's a total no-brainer. It is, pretty excellent. And then to go along with that, I got a book as well, the 30th Anniversary Encyclopedia of Super Mario Brothers. And it is Japanese, so I can't read pretty much any of it. But it has information on every single Mario character, game, power-up, every single level from every game. Information on different variations of the games, remakes, goods that we're never going to have a chance to get our hands on because they're obscure and impossible to obtain now. But it is, just like it says, it is an encyclopedia of Mario goodness, and it is pretty amazing. I really hope somebody does translate it because, when I got it, I thought it was maybe more of an art book, but it's not. But it's, jam-packed full of information, which I am trying to read using Google Translate, but it's a bit of a mess.
Does it at least have lots of pretty pictures to look at?
Oh, yeah. There's, screenshots and artwork to go with everything. But I think it would be, more meaningful if I could actually, read this information as well. But it's very, very thorough. I'm under the impression that there are already companies considering, trying to localize it for the U.S. I believe it's from the same publisher that did the Hyrule Historia book. So who knows? Maybe Dark Horse, the publisher of that one, is going to do this one as well. That would be pretty excellent, if I may say so.
That would be. It almost makes me want to attempt to make something like that. I mean, lots of people are making their own, books about games they're passionate about, even just self-publishing. But then I think about all those special issues of Nintendo Power we used to have to do, where we did kind of our own Zelda and Mario guides.
Yeah,
Man, the amount of time that goes into doing one that's even just good, much less some kind of classic masterpiece. It's a tough endeavor. My hat's off to people that do it well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course this is officially licensed, and it does seem quite good. So hopefully we'll get a chance to get it in English. The third item that I would like to mention, this one really doesn't work as a holiday gift purchase. You have to give someone a gift certificate for this instead, because it is not coming out until April. But that is a set of action figures based on Contra, the Konami shooter that they refused to bring to Virtual Console. Despite that fact, I still love the game, and getting physical action figures of this nearly 30-year-old game is something I never thought would happen. And they come in like a replica box that looks like the NES Contra box, and they're kind of decoed to look like they're in-game sprites. And I'm all over this. I am pretty excited. It looks pretty neat. I think I'd also like versions where they don't have the game deco and just look more like the box art, I guess. But either way, it's Mad Dog and Scorpion, or Bill and Lance, as they are also known. And I think it's a really cool collectible. It's coming from Nika. They made some Castlevania figures a while back, and they still do other video game figures, but the Konami connection comes in with these Castlevania figures. I'm going to line all those up. They're going to look great on my shelf. Pretty cool in my book.
Are those the same guys that did the retro NES Friday the 13th figure of Jason Voorhees?
Yes, they did a whole bunch of retro NES licensed characters based on the games. They did Jason Voorhees, a purple and light blue Jason Voorhees. They did a RoboCop. They did the Predator, Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street, and the theme about those is that they're almost exclusively really crappy games. I actually recently played Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Predator all in one night, and kind of wanted to throw myself off a bridge afterwards because they are awful. But Contra, of course, is one of the best. So it's nice to see them going a different route and making original figures based on great games, rather than just something that's kind of goofy and funny because haha, look at Jason, he's not supposed to be blazing purple.
Yeah, and it's really cool to get stuff like that based on characters that aren't just the usual suspects. And you can get a whole aisle of Sonic and Mario and even Link toys at Toys R Us, but then you see guys like this, and it just makes you smile.
Yeah, like I said, they did do some Castlevania ones several years back, and it's kind of too bad they didn't come in the NES style packaging, because I think this is going to look, like I said, pretty cool on my shelf together.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think it's time to take a little intermission, and when we come back, we will talk about RPGs. All right, we are back, and we are here to discuss our big topic this week, which is role-playing games, RPGs. And, Xenoblade Chronicles X is one of the reasons why this is the topic. But the reason why I thought it was a good, interesting topic is because Nintendo, isn't really known for being a really important force in RPGs, but in fact, they are. They are a major force in RPGs. They're one of the biggest innovators in RPGs. And I would say that if you're an RPG fan, you pretty much have to be a Nintendo system fan as well. Otherwise, you're missing out on a lot of stuff, especially when it comes to the Japanese-made things. I'm not really talking about Western RPGs. Obviously, those have their own niche on PC and Xbox. But when it comes to the stuff that long-term console gamers love, Nintendo's the place to be.
That's right. Yeah, a lot of more traditional JRPG fans often lament kind of the slow kind of phasing out of their favorite genre. But in actuality, that isn't really true. If you, like you said, take a closer look at Nintendo, you realize that even the most classic style of JRPGs is still alive and well when you look at stuff like the Bravely Default series. Mm-hmm. And also, let's give some respect to the Mario and Luigi series and the Paper Mario games, which are full-on RPGs. Yeah. Even if they do have their own special qualities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we will be getting into those in a moment. But I like to look back a little bit to like the early NES days, and RPGs were kind of just the realm of PC players. But then Nintendo comes in and they're like, no, we are going to introduce Japanese role-playing games to the NES playing audience. And they're the ones that brought out Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy over here and kind of established that as a genre for console players.
That's right. We certainly don't get to Final Fantasy VII on PlayStation, which for our generation was kind of, where RPGs started for them. We certainly don't get there without going through those early the Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy games on NES, and certainly not without going through the Super NES, which is one of the best systems for RPGs there's ever been.
That is true, although a lot of those games never ended up coming out in the United States, despite the fact that there are some excellent games.
Well, you still think about some of the best RPGs ever, and you think about Chrono Trigger, you think about the Final Fantasy titles that were on Super NES, all those $70 mega games that came out on cartridge back then.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the other one, when you talk about Super NES, that you always think about is EarthBound. And that was another huge innovation in Japanese RPGs. And, they, established what RPGs were. It's fantasy, it's swords, it's magic. And that's what we knew that RPGs were because of them giving us Final Fantasy and Dragon Warrior. Shout out, by the way, to the Nintendo Power Dragon Warrior promotion. But so, they did that, and we knew what they were all about. And then Nintendo was like, oh no, here's a, homegrown first party, essentially, RPG. It's called EarthBound. And it's kind of set in like the normal world. And the graphics are, kind of a throwback to, what you would have seen several years ago. And you're fighting new age retro hippies and piles of puke and stuff like that. And, it just changed what, people thought they knew about RPGs. And it was, pretty exciting and impressive and gave us something totally different.
Yeah. And I think that's a key too. Nintendo, with their publishing partners, they like, for example, they published Dragon Warrior in the US, but Dragon Quest, as it's called in Japan, was obviously an Enix game. But they kind of established the kind of the core template for the most classic style of those games, and then they kept mixing things up. Certainly with EarthBound, certainly with Paper Mario. They worked with Square on Super Mario RPG, which was a key title.
You're getting ahead of me now. Before we move on to those, I wanted to ask you about EarthBound. What are your feelings on it? Why do you think it has become such a cult classic?
Well, I think it comes down to, to be honest, if you play it, especially today, if you didn't play it back when it was new, if you play it today, it seems, as far as mechanically, a very kind of standard, classic console style JRPG. But I think what makes it special is the intangibles of the writing. It's what Mr. Itoi brought to it. It very much is, which is a bit maybe unusual for a Nintendo product, very much the brainchild and has the personality of this one very specific writer that was outside of Nintendo, who was popular in his own right for other works that they brought in to do the games which are called Mother in Japan. And I think it's just his handprints that people respond to. It's that very specific brand of humor. and also surprising kind of sentimentality at
Yes,
points.
exactly. That's exactly the things I was going to say. It's that quirky sense of humor, but then this unique emotion that he brings to the table.
Yeah, it really captured something, I think, about maybe, I don't know if these are the right words, but the mentality or maybe the spirit that you can have as a child that, is often lost in today's games. It was very pure in a way, and I think on a real kind of core level, people still respond to that.
Hmm. No, I completely agree. Although I think I would add, on top of that, one of the reasons why it became such a cult classic was the whole mystique surrounding it. That it kind of fell off the face of the earth and was completely unattainable, and it just became this big mystery for a lot of people that helped make it sort of grow and grow beyond what it really even was.
Yeah,
And I think that has helped turn into the stuff of legends.
it definitely, the myth around that series built up here in the West, that we just saw the tip of the iceberg. There was these other games. It was a whole series in Japan that was, as popular as anything, sold as many copies as any other franchise. And we were only getting just that one peek, behind the curtain. And of course, it just made everybody want it all the more.
Hmm. Yeah, and that still persists with Mother 3. Keep hearing it's so amazing, but I can't bring myself to play the fan translation. So, I'm just kind of waiting for something official to see if it really is as fantastic as everybody says.
Slowly but surely, we got the other, game that we never thought we would get, the original NES Mother.
Yeah, totally. Thought that was a lost cause.
Yeah, and we
Proof
finally
that
got
anything's possible.
we finally got EarthBound on VC as well. There's just one left. So, give Nintendo another 5, 10, 20 years. I'm sure we'll get it eventually.
Obviously, another huge RPG that came from Nintendo was Pokemon.
Yeah.
And that's not really one that people tend to really think of as an RPG either. But it is. It totally is. It's a turn-based RPG. I mean, it's a collection RPG, which, basically spawned an entire genre unto itself. But, it's probably the most popular RPG series in the world, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't, obviously, if what you traditionally think of as an RPG is a very specific kind of cinematic Square Enix experience, then you might overlook something like that. But, I mean, it's got to be the most successful and worldwide beloved RPG franchise there's ever been, right? I mean, even Dragon Quest, which was a behemoth, for decades in Japan, never really took off in the West. But worldwide, I mean, Pokemon is the very definition of a phenomenon, and it's
I mean, I think it literally sold a zillion copies.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
But I'm a little more interested in talking about the really Nintendo-y RPGs. Like you were alluding to, Super Mario RPG was another really neat game that came out during the Super NES era, and it might actually be their most traditional role-playing game. It obviously had a synced look. It did use the pre-rendered graphics, but it's mostly a turn-based RPG. Add in those timing elements for your attack and your defense, but because it was Mario and they're adding Mario to this, I think that might have opened a lot of people's eyes and made them play a game that's an RPG that they might not have ever wanted to play before.
Yeah, it really did open up, I think, RPGs to a much bigger audience. Not just, like you said, using those broadly appealing Mario characters, but also the fact that combat in the game wasn't as passive, that you were still actively timing button presses and things like that. It was an ingenious approach that has continued on through both the Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Super Mario RPG, was a lot of fun, introduced new characters, put old characters together in ways we weren't expecting. We got to see, Peach beating people with frying pans, and Bowser being on the same team with Peach and Mario. And that was all, really cool to see as a fan. And personally, I would have loved to have seen a direct sequel to that. And there were rumors that, it's going to be a Super Mario RPG 2. And of course there kind of was, but by then I think, Nintendo and Square Enix, or was it just Square at that time? I guess it was just Square at that time. They were no longer partners at the dance. And so when we got a sequel, it was Paper Mario. And that was even sort of more off the rails and taking even more risks and going in different directions.
Yeah, and I gotta say, out of all those the games, there have been the original Super Mario RPGs, the Paper Mario series, and Mario and Luigi. My favorite of all those, my favorite one specific game is still Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door on GameCube.
Oh wow! I thought it was going to be a tougher decision for you. I was going to go there. I was going to be like, okay, which one's the best? I was gonna really grill you there, but boy, you just came out and easy for you to choose, huh?
Yeah, it is easy. I think that I love all the other games. I even like the ones that weren't as popular maybe with some gamers, like I believe it was Paper Mario Sticker Star for the 3DS.
Oh yeah. I've barely even played that one because of hearing so many negative things from my NP coworkers at the time.
There's one really annoying kind of rough spot in the middle, but for the most part it's good. But
I've heard of a few.
But I will say each game has
Wiggler pieces. That's the bane.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's
It's
existence.
the Wiggler pieces. But each one has a little something that that isn't like I don't know if you call it a rough spot, but for example, Super Paper Mario is a very different kind of game, and the world that you kind of explore a 2D world that you can kind of turn at points to make 3D, but it's such an expansive world. It's just like one big maze, and you put it down for a few days or even a week, and you come back to it, and you have no idea where the hell you are. So
yeah, totally.
So there are different elements of each game where I feel like it could have been polished a bit better, or you get a perfectly fine entry that just doesn't happen to be as funny as the others. I mean, that's the thing about the Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi games is certain entries in each series set really high marks as far as humor. I love like Fawful, for example, which is in a couple of the Mario and Luigi titles. I love the way he speaks and his kind of unique comedy, but you take him out of the adventure and those other games aren't quite as good to me. But I think, speaking of humor, Thousand Year Door nailed it. And it just had, such a great kind of almost like at times kind of like a kind of a subtle humor that I really appreciated. Like I was on the inside of these bunch of cool in-jokes. And so I just think that game, both from the humor and also the world, was complex, but not so complex I was lost all the time. I just think they kind of nailed everything almost perfectly in that game.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the writing and the humor, because that's one of the things that Nintendo does with its RPGs that it was really able to do better than anybody else. And it was really able to make these games stand out and be something special and unique. And then on top of that, there was the really unique gameplay. Paper Mario did away with the party system, just gave you that buddy to work with, and that brought something very distinctive. And then Mario Luigi, it's got this 2-character system where each one's assigned to a different button. And just like, for me, my brain has to work a completely different way to play that game when compared to other RPGs. It's so much based on timing and reflexes and patterns for like all the different enemies, and that's one of the things that I really like about that series and makes it really stand out.
Yeah, I'll be really curious to see how they mesh all of that from both of those series with the next game. What's the name of it again? Mario and Luigi
Paper Jam.
Paper Jam. Yeah. I'll be honest, from what I've seen so far, it certainly doesn't look like a bad game by any means, but I don't know that those two great tastes, are necessarily going to taste great together. But I'm hopeful.
Well, the one thing I will say about it from the demo I played way back at E3 was that you're now controlling what seemed to be 3 characters at once. And as I'm sure I mentioned on the show before, after experiencing that, my brain was just ready to like crawl out my ear, go down a pipe and die somewhere. It was just too much for me to handle. I can barely do 2 characters. Do you have a favorite of the 4 Mario and Luigi games that have come out so far?
That's a tough one. I don't know that all of them are as fresh on my mind as they should be for me to make a call like that. But like I said, my heart kind of lies with Fawful. So I might go with the first entry, which was Superstar Saga, right?
Yeah, I think I would probably do the same because, it's the freshest. It did have Fawful. And they weren't relying on gimmicks so much. It was just, the idea of a Mario Luigi RPG in its purest state.
Yeah, this is one of those franchises where they feel the need, with every adventure to add some kind of big new gimmick, whether it's, how you use your power ups.
Well, in part 3, it was Bowser.
Yeah.
In part 4, it was this whole dream thing with Luigi. Obviously, in the 5th one, it's teaming up with Paper Mario. The second one, I think was really a missed opportunity. And I really, really like the second game. But, there was the one that introduced the time travel elements. And, well, it had Baby Mario and Baby Luigi. And the concept was, they like traveled through time or something. But it seems like the time travel thing was a missed opportunity because I think it's taking place in the past, but you don't ever like affect the future or see, the past Mushroom Kingdom that, gives some hilarious revelations or anything. And, it's not like Chrono Trigger at all, like, change the past, affect the future. And it seems like that's something they could have done that would have made it, really, really cool. But it's just kind of like, it's just a story element. Yeah, they're in the past. Don't worry about it. Who cares? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And the babies didn't really, add a ton gameplay-wise either, because it seemed that they just, instead of having the powers that they did in the previous game, they're like, okay, now we have different powers replaced, with the babies. But it was still really fun. And to this day, that is the only video game where I have written a strategy guide for it all on my own.
Oh, wow. That would have been a tough one.
Yeah. I mean, I had, some backup to make sure that I didn't get it over my head. But when it comes to the actual, writing for the guidebook, Partners in Time was all me.
My one overall complaint about the Mario and Luigi series, or rather something I would like to see changed, is I can't remember if they were all like this, but certainly in the most recent installments, they have like beans hidden everywhere. And,
yeah.
And there's
lots of collectibles.
There's a lot of just the overworld can be like a maze at times, where just kind of figuring out how to get from here to there is part of the challenge.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And sometimes it gets to be a little bit much for me. There's a few too many collectibles. The exploration is a little too not daunting in the way that it's hard, but I just can't kind of mindlessly, return back to somewhere I went without having to really think about where I'm going and what I'm doing. So
I think that's sort of a captivating overworld.
In a way, but sometimes, especially if I'm just hunting down beans or something, and I'm just kind of going back to places I already went, I don't.
They are the musical fruit,
They are the musical fruit, but I just feel like I don't want to think too much about certain aspects like that. It's a tough game to max out, and I'm trying along the way, but I always feel like it comes to that point where I never follow through on 100% completion, just because in the end it's a little bit too. Not challenging in that it's hard, but just a little too time-consuming, maybe, I guess.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I mean, obviously, I 1,000% completed Partners in Time, but I've actually never finished Bowser's Inside Story or Dream Team.
Yeah, Bowser's Inside Story I still have to finish too. I got to the very last boss when I was reviewing it for Nintendo Power, but that was on the pre-release build.
Oh yeah, and you had to give it up probably.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Oh, you definitely did.
Yeah, I did.
We always had to give those things
We
back.
ran out of time. I had to write the review, and I was in the middle of the final boss, so it's not like beating him would have changed my review or anything. So I went ahead and reviewed it, but then on my final copy, I never went back and replayed it yet, so I've yet to see the ending for that game. One of these days.
Yeah.
I did. That is one of my more favorite installments. I like the conceit of going through Bowser's body, and I think at one point you're in his butt. And there's some.
Well, Bowser's a pretty entertaining character.
There's some nice comedy. There's a whole part where he just has to stuff himself and make himself fat at some banquet or something. That,
I remember filling himself with water to get fat, but I must not have ever gotten to the banquet part.
If I remember right, there is a place, where he just eats lots of food, and it's pretty hilarious.
Well, that sounds good. I wish I had seen that. But I know what you're saying about that final boss thing, because the same thing happened to me with another excellent Nintendo RPG series, Golden Sun.
Ah, yeah, a lot of Golden Sun fans.
Yeah, and I had to review the second game, I think Golden Sun: The Lost Age, and I was also at the final boss, and I was just not able to put him away when Nintendo came knocking. They're like, yeah, we have to get this back. And I'm like, oh, are you serious? You son of a... And just had to give it up.
I got to tell you, playing an RPG for work was always the worst. And I mean, I mean that's a super serious first world problem that I didn't want to play this great game for my job, but you tended to have to rush through it. You couldn't always finish it, and then it's a tough kind of game to replay through again when you finally get a final copy.
Yeah, it's kind of true. I guess I've had some experiences that make the game a little less fun than it could be if you're just playing it on your own. I do not envy the people that had to put in 100 hours or something on Xenoblade Chronicles and try to get that done in time. I'm glad I was not the one who did the original Xenoblade Chronicles for Nintendo Power. That went to Casey Lowe, although I would have loved to have done. I'm like, nope, that's just too much for me to take on. Although shortly after that, I did do the last story for work, and that was a game that I actually had a whole lot of fun with playing, because it's a very sort of intimate RPG. It's like the complete opposite of Xenoblade. It's a very contained story, a very contained area. It's not vast, but it has just this great amount of detail in the small area you're in and with the characters you're in. And that is one of my favorite Nintendo published RPGs, even though they didn't publish it here in the US. But they are responsible for its existence nonetheless. Obviously it's a Sakaguchi title. Obviously Xseed brought that over here. But it's a really, really fun RPG for me. One of my favorites in recent years that I do want to give a shout out to.
Mm-hmm.
But since I asked you earlier about your favorite Mario RPG, I think it's only fair if I answer that question myself. And I think for me it would probably be Super Mario RPG. Legend of the Seven Stars. I guess I'm just kind of traditional in that way, that I like the more typical turn-based battles rather than what they did in Paper Mario or Mario Luigi. But they're all so good. It's hard to pick one over the other.
And they're also similar. It's like I'm sure there'd be a lot of people.
Well, sort of.
I'm sure there'd be a lot of people who would love to see a direct sequel to Super Mario RPG. But if they were to update that for today, and even if they stayed true to that original game, it's not like it would seem wholly removed from all these other series that have taken so much from that game.
Maybe. I mean, certainly the timing-based attacks originated there, but if they went back to a traditional turn-based system, which Mario, Luigi, and Paper Mario don't really have, I think it could stand out on its own. Although, don't give it back to Square, because we know that they would just turn it into a real-time fighting action game, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it would have to be produced by Nomura, because apparently he's the only one who can make games for Square now.
Yes, please look forward to it in the year 2146.
Maybe he actually has been working on it all this time. Maybe production began right when the original was completed.
That explains it. That's why he's been able to publish a game in the last 15 years. But it does bring me to another question. That is, what would you like to see them do next when it comes to Nintendo and RPGs?
Well, I would really love to see an RPG that brought together Nintendo's franchises in a way similar to what Smash Brothers did for fighting games. I've always thought, and not to detract from what makes Smash special, but I've always thought that there's at least room for one more franchise that is a crossover franchise for Nintendo. And, we got a little peek of that in the Subspace Emissary mode for Smash Bros. Brawl on Wii, which wasn't an RPG by any means. It was a side-scrolling game, but there was so much story in it and so many cinematics that even though it wasn't necessarily an especially engrossing story or well-told story, there were just so many moments where you got to see RPG-style cinematics where you got to see these characters meet and interact for the first time. And I would love to see a real RPG built around that. I think, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun. Sort of, I mentioned before, I kind of would like to see a, Kingdom Hearts done with Nintendo characters. But you can leave out all that Kingdom Hearts baggage and just, do it, purely with Nintendo characters. Maybe even that could be, like the Amiibo-based game that I've been wanting to see. But yeah, that could be a lot of fun. That would be something that would be really cool. And like you said, there's plenty of room for it in the Nintendo catalog. Just because Smash Bros. Exists doesn't mean they can't do a similar type of thing with role-playing games.
Absolutely, and like you said, if they ever did do a full-on kind of major top-line amiibo game, it probably would be a big crossover game, obviously, because there's so many different types of franchises represented with amiibo. So here's something that would be a little bit unexpected, but also make perfect sense. Now that you've got me thinking about it, I'm going to be disappointed if we don't ever see something like that.
So here's what I would really like to see them do in the future. And, people have to forgive me if I start, going off into like weird potential fanfic territory here. But my dream Mario and Luigi game, I don't mean Dream Team, I mean the Mario and Luigi game I would just really, really like to see, would be a title that introduces Bowser's brother to the series. I'd like... to sort of, the concept would be, this is Mario and Luigi. They are always, teaming up, and they are defeating Bowser over and over again. It's happened in 4 games so far. I suspect it's going to happen in this 5th one. So we're going to introduce Bowser's brother to try to even the odds. We'll call him, Trouser or Schnauzer. I like Schnauzer. So... he reluctantly, calls up his brother, and we find out that Bowser's like, the black sheep of the family, and like his brothers all went off, they became like doctors and lawyers or politicians. One of them's a philosopher. And meanwhile, Bowser, he's just like, I'm violent and uncouth, and I'm just going to go out and conquer the kingdoms with my armies. And we find out that, he has like, all these daddy issues and things like that. And, we never thought he was loved by his father. But, that's why he's always kidnapping princesses and things, because he just can't handle, the way he was brought up. So, Schnauzer comes in here, and, he's very suave and sophisticated, and, he's going to, advise his brother and help him out and, try to get him, respectable again, get this out of his system, conquer a kingdom or two, and then, he'll be back on the right path. Well, of course, the way it plays out is that, Bowser's incompetence will, keep getting in the way, and of course, Mario and Luigi will keep thwarting their plans despite this, and, we'll see, Schnauzer getting, more and more irritated as this goes on, and, eventually he'll just, go ballistic, and he'll be, even more evil than Bowser is, and, this will all boil out to the surface, and, we'll have to, take him on as the ultimate big bad guy. But my point is that I think, if it's Mario and Luigi, those bros, I think it would be awesome fighting a pair of evil Bowser bros on the other side. I think that would be awesome.
Well, I think if you could make a game called Super Bowser Bros, the name alone justifies it.
Yeah, I think that would do the trick. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of covers what I wanted to discuss here with RPGs. I think the moral of the story is there's a lot of good ones. Nintendo, is a great RPG manufacturer, and they're still coming. Next year's going to be awesome for Nintendo RPGs with the Dragon Quest games and Bravely Default, and Paper Jam coming out just in about a month or so.
And if you're talking strategy RPGs, don't forget about Fire Emblem Fates, because that might be my number one look forward to game for next year.
No, I really wasn't, because if you talk strategy RPGs, this opens up another whole ginormous can of worms with that series, and stuff like Advance Wars as well. So Nintendo has all those genres and subgenres covered. But if we keep talking about all that stuff, this podcast will go on way, way, way too long. So instead, I think that we will call this a show. But before we go, I think it's time for a dramatic reading. This time from the back of the box of the NES classic Bomberman. Bomberman is a robot engaged in the production of bombs. Like his fellow robots, he had been put to work in an underground compound at the center of the Earth. Bomberman found it to be an unbearably dreadful existence. One day he learned that any robot escaping from the center of the Earth and make it to the surface will become human. Bomberman jumped at the opportunity. Alerted to Bomberman's betrayal, large numbers of enemy characters were sent out in pursuit. Bomberman can only rely on bombs of his own production for his defense. Will Bomberman ever make it to the surface? Once there, will he really become human? We don't know, because that's the end of the box copy. You'll have to play the game to find out.
Was that his goal, to become human?
I was completely unaware of this until I started reading the back of this package.
Well, you learn something new every week here on the Power Pros podcast.
I suppose so.
That's it for this week. As always, you can find us at powerpros.podbean.com, and you can follow us at PowerProsPod on both Facebook and Twitter. You can also follow the Hoff on Twitter at Chris the Hoff, and I'm at Chris Slate. Hoff has a cool blog you should definitely check out called Still Playing with Power, and you can find it at christhehoff.tumblr.com. You can email us at powerprospod@gmail.com, and these days you can also look us up on YouTube, so check us out there. And if you like the podcast, as always, we really appreciate it if you can drop by iTunes and let us know.
Thanks for listening, everybody. For myself, Chris Slate,
See ya.
and our guardian angel Pitt,
Sorry to keep you waiting.
we will see you next time.